From the AP, violence, chaos erupts on campuses as protesters and counter-protesters clash over the war in Gaza. So counter-protesters forcefully attacked a pro-Palestinian encampment at the University of California, Los Angeles early Wednesday. And activists clashed with police officers who destroyed their tents at the University of Wisconsin in Madison as part of a series of escalating violence on some college campuses over the war in Gaza. 15 people were injured during the UCLA confrontation, including one person who was hospitalized, according to the president of the University of California system. The chaotic scenes unfolded Wednesday after police burst into a building occupied by anti-war protesters. Pause. Anti-war? I'm not accepting that. Leftist, communist protesters at Columbia University, many of which weren't even students, breaking up a demonstration that had paralyzed the school. Now, the funny thing is, I got to mention this. There's a tweet I think is from Cenk Uygur, and he's like, it was these violent pro-Israel groups that came and attacked the peaceful protesters. And I was like, I just love this. I love this so much. Okay, so here's what happens. A group of people slowly start settling on land that doesn't belong to them and then decide they're going to put up barricades to keep the people who originally were using that space out. Then the people who were originally there get angry and fight back, trying to tear down the barricades, attacking those who are now occupying that land. And the irony is lost on all of them.
It's very
It was funny, though. I had some tweets and they're like, that sounds like Hamas. And I'm like, you figured it out, huh? So the pro-Palestine group takes over the school grounds, put up barricades, and were barring people from getting in unless you supported their cause. Then they would give you a wristband. No, they had red wristbands. So a bunch of Jewish students were like, no, I won't support them. Like, you can't come in. It's like, I go to school here.
New York's hottest club is...
Yep. And they're like, no, they won't let you in. So a bunch of these kids got mad and they formed a group and they showed up in the morning and they started tearing down the barricades. They started picking up the metal barricades, pulling things down when the pro-Hamas side, and I'm not going to mince words, it's the pro-Hamas side, started resisting. Then I believe it's fair to say, I don't know who started what, but I believe from the videos I've seen, it was the counter demonstrators who started attacking the pro-Hamas group.
Yeah, it looked that way to me. I heard from a reporter that was on the ground that they were all really cool. They were just like a bunch of people that were either harassed earlier in the day that came back because they were pissed about what happened. He said there were some Israelis, but they were a lot of just kids that got harassed earlier in the day that didn't want to be a part of it and that were sick of it, that just wanted, class to go on.
I just say, don't go start fights. Like, the police needed to go in and deal with this from the get-go. And this happens because the cops refused to do anything.
Did you see them throw a firework in there?
They threw it into the crowd?
They threw it over and into the ground. That's dangerous.
I think it was Cassandra who said this. It looks like a pro-Israel Antifa faction and an anti-Israel Antifa faction fighting each other with Antifa tactics. And I was like, it does. It really does.
Yeah. That's who these people are. You can't deny that these same people were the same people that are in this camp, were the same people that were marching with BLM.
Of course they were.
For a fact there. We know
100%.
It's already been reported.
But even
some of the people who are there who are paid organizers are well known. Like I was saying the other night, we call them the tourists at Occupy Wall Street. New York Post reported on one woman, and we'll make her infamous, I guess. Not that I want to give her attention or anything, but she was well known during Occupy. Her name is Lisa Fithian, and they reported she's appeared in Turkey as well, organizing protests. And you wonder how it is that these people are involved in international protest movements and organizations, and they're getting paid to do it. Someone's funding this. Outside of what she does, which is like activist trainings and things like that, so they report, there are a handful of other people who have been to China, of all places, who are in Ukraine, who are in a bunch of these places, who are in Venezuela and Brazil, and we call them the tourists. Some people speculate they're feds. I don't know that they're feds. Some people think they're CIA because, they're going off into foreign lands and fomenting revolution and things like that. I don't know that I agree with that. I don't know. All I know is it's funny to see activists in the United States training people to protest, how to avoid legal consequence. And then it's like, oh, and by the way, that person was also in China doing the same thing. This person was also in Turkey. That person was in Brazil. And you're like, that's kind of weird. You know what I mean? What's going on here? I will say, however, I don't know that this clash right now, this is like when you get general pro-Trump versus anti-Trump factions fighting in the street, I get worried about how far this could escalate. But really with like the Israel issue, I don't even think it registers in the top 10 for the average voter. So it's like the people who are fighting the pro-Hamas side were just people who were barred from their school by this leftist communist faction. I don't see this spreading or escalating into street violence beyond that.
I think it
maybe
is
with cops.
Yeah, I think it is really centralized at the universities, and I think the average voter, this may not be a pressing issue, but it is for young voters, and they are having differing levels of effectiveness. Brown University agreed, the pro-Palestine protesters agreed to break down their encampment because the Brown University board agreed to vote on divesting from Israel. Theoretically, the board could be like, and we're not going to do it, and they'll bring back the protest. But they are having, they did get at least a vote. There is some forward progress there. I think it's a weird stance for people to be in because it's a foreign war that is really captivating the hearts and minds of young progressive leftists, and it's splitting them from older Democrats who they would have, especially at these Ivy League universities, these were their job connections, these were their future employment, and so it hurts the Democratic Party more than anybody else. And I think that's why I think at a certain level, I'm sort of like, just let them fight it out. Obviously, violence is bad. You want to be careful of that. I think the universities have a right to kick people off their protesting. I think the protesters have a right to protest. But it's contained really to what I think of as the heart and soul of progressive academia, elite universities across the country. I don't really see this breaking out, in the middle of a major city at random over the summer.
Not now, maybe a couple of years down the road, but because Samuel Huntington's Clash of Civilizations, I think that's inevitably where we'll go. But these teachers, the professors, are lining up arms in arms with orange vests on, and they're participating in this. I saw some professor that was tweeting out, I think it was Brown or Columbia or something, but she was like, they can't do this. This is, stay strong or whatever. These teachers are escalating the situation. They're not calming it down. They're not making it better. I want to know what happens to the professors that are egging this on, that are actively participating. Are they gonna be fired?
And I want to know how many are tenured.
Right.
How many of them are theoretically impossible to remove from their positions.
But you're committing crimes. You're trust.
They don't want to. The teachers they fire. It's going to be difficult to replace, and then they have to worry about losing customers. And they don't want to have their customers arrested. They're just trying to figure out how to maximize their revenue streams. So the problem right now with UCLA and these other universities is if the protests come to the point where people stop wanting to come to the school, you lose money. But if you arrest and remove or expel these students, you lose money too. So they got to do that cost benefit analysis. If we expel 100 students right now, how much do we lose? If we let them keep doing whatever they want, do we lose less?
And how many people will decide not to apply to our school if we get labeled the one that was anti, Palestine or anti
none of the
whatever.
Jewish ones.
It's interesting because I think this, U.S. News and World Report always puts out this ranking of colleges every year, and part of it has to do with enrollment and how many students choose to stay at the schools. If you suspend all of these students who are actively participating, but then the other ones who weren't actively participating but are going to take a holier than thou stance and say, actually, I believe in this issue 100%, so I'm going to transfer away from your school. I mean, you could see a real shift in how these universities are valued by the system that they rely on to maintain their dominance in education.
But they also care about their endowments, and the endowment money isn't coming from...
That's true. It's coming from Bill Ackman?
Yeah, it's not coming from the pro-Palestinian side, right?
Right.
It's coming from the pro-Israel side. So
I think Bill Ackman just gave $10,000 to those frat boys who defended the flag.
Yeah.
So he's basically throwing his money down on the other side because he was woke before, wasn't he? Mm-hmm. Was that his story?
I think so. He was lefty, at least.
I look. I'm down. It's fine. I'm not a fan of the anti-Semitism bill because of it's vague and it conflates criticizing a government with anti-Semitism,
because it violates the First Amendment. If people can hate, it's not like I advocate hating people, but if you have if you have a beef with people, you have the right to hate. It's not good. Yeah. It's not good to be like that, but that's part of being a free person.
I'm thinking mathematically, right? The sum result of what's going on is going to be more and more people realizing DEI, wokeness, and this far left stuff is bad. And I don't care why they come to that conclusion. There are a lot of people who are like, oh, only now because Israel is being targeted, these people realize DEI is bad. When they were the ones attacking the cops, I'm like, don't care. I'm going to walk right up to them, reach a hand out and say, welcome to the fight.
True.
That's the lesson from Occupy Wall Street that I love to tell, where there were two black dudes talking. One guy was yelling at the other guy saying, why are you here with these white kids? They don't know nothing about our struggle, and you're going to help them. And the other guy just said to him, he's like, oh, you don't understand, man. Now they get it. Now they see what we've been talking about. So I reach out my hand and say, welcome to the fight. And now they're standing with me, not the other way around. I respect it. I'm like, 100%. If Bill Ackman or anyone else is now being like, whoa, is this what universities were doing? My response is, let me show you more. Because once you start to dig down to the rabbit hole, you're going to realize just how bad it is.
I agree.
A lot of people didn't believe it. And a lot of people on the issue of Israel, it smacked him in the face. Michael Rappaport is my favorite example. He's a funny guy. He's in the new Fallout show. I like his work. And he hates Trump with a passion. Then he sees what's going on with these people. And now he's digging deeper and looking into more of what they've been doing and going, whoa, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So the door's been opened. Let him do it.
I think so much of this is actually, some of it is driving people to Trump because they see him as, a better option. But I think it's also just driving a lot of voters away from Biden. Like I've referenced a couple times, but I've been listening to interviews with young progressive activists, 19, 20. And there are, a fair number that will say, well, I'm not going to vote at all. Some of them are saying they'll vote for Trump as a protest against Biden because they think he's so awful now. But Democrats who have prided themselves on being the recipient of the youth vote for so long, they're so good at motivating young people, they just have hit an issue that I do not think they can navigate past. And I think to a certain extent, they're trying to close their eyes and just rush November as soon as possible because they know there's really no way to reach out to these students who are saying, hey, Israel is the aggressor in this war, Israel's doing the wrong thing, and win them back over with Biden sort of standing on both sides and putting up a port, but we're not boots on the ground. Like, there's no saving the messaging here.
I think sort of the funny thing here is between MAGA and the far left, there is only one faction you could actually convince to support Israel. The MAGA faction, many of them already do, just outright support Israel and would absolutely, despite being America First, many of them are like, no, but Israel, I would agree with funding, many for religious reasons. However, I would say most of the people who are America First and pro-Trump, or a large portion, maybe the plurality, are like, I don't want to fund foreign wars. I don't want to fund foreign governments. Let's secure our borders. But if you go to them and you say something like, look at what's going on, and you make an argument, there is a possibility some of them might be like, okay, fine, I guess. Whereas the far left will never. So if the deep state wants to maintain their military policies in the Middle East pertaining to Israel especially, you can't go left. There's no argument at all. It's just not going to happen. I mean, Trump supporters are not setting up encampments and taking over cities because of funding bills. They're complaining about it on the internet. So it's like, you pick your poison, deep state. You can get behind Donald Trump, who you hate and can't stand, but you get a little bit of your military policy. You go with the left, and they're going to occupy cities. They're going to build parks, and they're going to defy your interests. I suppose they can go the other way and just ban TikTok, though. That's kind of their plan, right? Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.